Welcome to another edition of Dianne Andrews in Black and White, an open discussion about the issues you don't want to talk about and the arts you need to know. Now, here's your host, Dianne Andrews.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm very honored to be here again with Dianne Andrews in Black and White, and I am Dianne Andrews. I want to thank the audience, in-stage audience. I want to thank television. We've just gotten put on Metro, formerly Metro 21, Government 21. We'll start being on there every Sunday. And of course, I thank you, YouTube, because the participation from YouTube has been enormous. I've only been doing this about 2.5 months. And we've gotten so many great comments from people like Daryl Brown, the former LSU coach, and what he said was, I'm a great host and a great moderator. We've got comments from people that said that the show has changed their life. From Maxine Crump has been very gracious. She was one of the first personalities on TV as a black woman in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. She took me out. I took her out, and I said, Maxine, what can I do to change some things to get better? She said, you're engaging, you're great, the conversation is great. I can't give you any comments on what to improve upon. So just keep getting the production better and keep doing the things right. So there are a lot of people, and I'm going to read some of the comments to you on some of the other people, but I wanted to voice those and tell Dale and Maxine, thank you very much. We're today going to do a part 2 on a series that I did about 6 weeks ago. It was called ISIS, Hamas, Boko Haram. And I made some comments in that show. From 6 weeks ago, I knew that ISIS was a major force to be reckoned with from over in Iraq and Syria. We're going to talk about some of those comments that were made then, and I can say, yes, I told you this. And we are back there, even though it's airstrikes. So our cast of guests today will include some people, including Anthony Stewart, who is a law student at Southern University Law School, who is a former lobbyist. Then I have Major Drew Thomas, who's in the Army, and he is a major, who has been in Iraq and has been in Afghanistan and in Kuwait. To my right is my resident Nation of Islam friend, Daryl Muhammad, and he was on the first ISIS show. And we're going to talk about how things have changed and what we think the strategy should be, or what it really is today, since a month ago our president said that ISIS was a JV team. And I think the JV team that just killed people in Canada, and the JV team that is causing a lot of other things to go on, which was 800 people when we left Iraq, is now 80,000 people in 3 years. When I look at Time magazine cover, this is from January 2014, and they talk about Al-Qaeda returns. Call them ISIS, which means Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. ISIL, you might hear, which means the Islamic State of Iraq and Levant, which is an area on the Mediterranean that includes Cyprus, Jordan, Iraq, Syria, and part of the southern part of Turkey, that whole region there. And we're going to put up a map in a minute of that area. And then you have ICE, which is Islamic State, and the Caliphate, which means they want to dominate the world. So when we use these terms in our language, American and in English, that's what it means to us, and going on into a caliphate. Now, this is the map on your screen, and you can see the areas in that Mediterranean area in the Middle East, and you can see all the countries that I just talked about. Now, Turkey borders Syria, which Assad is the prime minister of Syria. And we're going to talk about why Turkey will not give us the help that we are looking for from Turkey, and why we need Turkey so much, who has a very strong army, one of the strongest after Israel in the Middle East. I'm going to start off with you, Drew, and since you've been to the Middle East, Major, and we talked about this a little bit ourselves. What do you think of what's going on? Did you see the Canadian people that got killed in Parliament yesterday?
I did.
Okay.
I think that's very tragic.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just tragic. I'm not going to comment more than that. I think the basis of what you and I were speaking of is, let's fight these people in an area that's where their home, instead of having them invade and strike us and hit us where it hurts, which is, you know, here.
They're already in North America.
That's correct.
And do you remember the guy from Bond Foods in Oklahoma City that beheaded the people? He was trying to convert them to Muslim, in fact, specifically to be a part of ISIS.
Right. Again, you're talking about extremists.
Right.
And again, we have to, I'd like to just say, separate these extremists who are calling themselves Muslims, which
Right.
are not really, in my opinion, core Muslims.
That's right, because Islam's mean to focus on a life of peace. And let's talk about that. Daryl, in our first, we talked about that I said to you, 1.5 billion people don't strap bombs on themselves and blow each other up and blow other people up. We know that all the Nation of Islam are Muslim. People are not terrorists. But we know we have a militant arm of the Nation of Islam, as we have militant Americans, we've got militant would you agree with that?
Well, what I would say is that, you know, when we use terms like terrorists, so on and so forth, we must understand.
I said militant.
Right. Well, and even militant, you know, because you know, the Black Panther Party was looked at as militant, and there are cases, there are instances when militancy is absolutely necessary. I know in the '60s when we were fighting for our rights. So do you agree with what ISIS is doing today? Well, let me just say this. Okay. I don't agree with the killing of innocent people for political reasons. I don't agree with that. But at the same time, we must realize that Western intervention in that area, based upon something that turned out not to be true, is the thing that created the vacuum out of which this movement has grown. Now, when you have 80,000 fighters, you're not talking about a terrorist group. You're talking about a military force that is rejecting.
But it got to 80,000 in 3 years since our government decided to leave. I'm going to take a break, and then we're going to be right back with some information I said on the last show 6 weeks ago. And maybe we left too soon. We still have people in Korea defending from wars back in the 1950s, I think.
Absolutely.
Well, you know, America is the big brother for a lot of places around the globe, and so we're actually drawn in sometimes just because we have to.
But you know, our military budget is shrinking in America. The number of people and places we are going to protect, help, or maybe do evil again. I don't know. It depends on your advantage or disadvantage point out. People look at what we do in America. Of course, we think it's all good. But I don't know how we can continue to help the world if we continue to shrink the military budget.
Well, the budget is really determined by the heart of the people, the pulse of the people in the United States, because whatever party is in, without getting too deep in politics, that's what really determines your involvement in a different country. And
as I just said 6 weeks ago, that we probably left too soon. And we're back out there. Whether it's airstrikes, we're still back. Just because you make a political statement that you're going to pull people out, as I said in that 6 weeks ago, we're still in Korea. We've been there for 70 years. We have 40,000 troops. We have a very large force. As Leon Panetta and Hillary Clinton and Bob Gates, which are both from both parties, Republicans and 2 Democrats, said they tried to get the president to leave a residual force, and Maliki, who was the prime minister of Iraq at that time, asked for 10,000 troops. We had 130,000 troops in Iraq, and we took all of them out. And now the militants, I'm going to call them because they are killing people, and they have grown from 800 to 40,000 in Iraq and another 40,000 in Syria in 3 years. It's just like if I have gangrene or diabetes with PVD, it's called, peripheral vascular disease, that the blood doesn't flow down to the foot. I want to catch that at the toe before I take off my entire leg, and that will happen because this is like a cancer that will continue to grow. Baghdadi, who is the prime minister of ISIS, or their leader, to be said, because it's really not a geography, he is their leader, and he has said, I will drown you in your own blood, America. What do you think about that, Anthony?
I think that the Arab world is going to go back to the Caliphate order about like we'll go back to the Crown of England. I think that
America, you're saying,
that's
all
right.
North America.
That's right. we're not going back to the Crown of England, and the Arab world is not likely to go back to the Caliphate order. There are two problems with that. Number one, you have active nation states that have a vested interest. You have Saudi Arabia, you have Tehran with Iran, and you have Turkey, of course. And so they're going to have a vested interest in protecting the concept of their territory. Number two,
now Turkey is the strongest army after Israel in the Middle East.
And some argue,
isn't that right, Drew?
Some argue second to Tehran, and that's where some of the conflict in this coalition is coming from.
Of that, Drew, being over there.
I would say from that particular perspective, we have to take a long, hard look at our allies within the particular region, as well as our country and military interests in that particular area.
Now, I showed a map back in our ISIS show a few weeks ago, 6 weeks ago, that showed, it was called the Middle East Friendship Chart. And it shows that we have then only 4 friends, is what that was saying 6 weeks ago. And it's back on your screen today. Israel, of course, which we have to protect and continue to protect if we want to stay in the Middle East. Turkey was one of our friends. Turkey has said, when Susan Rice came out 3 weeks ago and said had Turkey and we could use their bases, we just were allowed to use their bases for drones, not for airplanes flying in. And they said that Susan Rice was not correct in what she said until they went and did some renegotiation. Turkey tends, and what I have read, is that Qatar, Saudi Arabia, wants to build a pipeline for natural gas through Syria that hits the Gulf of Turkey. That is what one of these main problems is about. They are being funded right now. The rebels, the Syrian rebels that have been asking us for weaponry, which we just sent this week. We sent 4 big caches, they call them, of weapons, and one did not make it there. They don't know, as ISIS right now has $12 billion of American Humvees and equipment because we left them in Iraq, and the people were not trained well enough to protect the weapons, as they're getting $3 million a day on the black market oil because they have the oil fields now in Iraq. But this is, when I read this, I said, oh, a light bulb went off in my head. This is about Saudi Arabia, who is Sunni. Assad, the president of Syria, is a Alaki. He's not a Sunni or a Shiite. He is not from either one of those sects. In fact, he's a doctor. He's a medical doctor. He's an optometrist. He does not want that Gulf pipeline to go through Syria. Saudi Arabia does want it to go through, and they're paying for it because it will come out of Qatar, and that is a lot of money. And I'm seeing now this may be a big part, and I just read this last night. That's major. Part. That's a major part of this fight, is about natural gas, oil and natural gas.
I would have to agree with you. I don't think that we would be talking about this if the major export of these countries was actually broccoli or cantaloupe.
Right.
So it is definitely about oil.
And natural gas that just came into place. Saudi Arabia has a lot of natural gas, and they want to build that pipeline to get it to Europe.
But
Europe wants
the
their
thing,
natural gas.
And I argue that we should build that pipeline.
Oh, I agree we should. But
because
Assad,
that takes away the leverage.
Assad moved from Syria. He does not want that pipeline going through his country.
That's correct.
Well, let me say this. It's not a question of whether you want something going through your country. It's a question of whether or not you're going to get fair price for whatever resources are used. Now, it is a question of whether he wants it. We don't want a pipeline. In fact, we're talking about a pipeline for years here in the United States that has not gotten built yet. Well, I'm going to say this, because
if Assad doesn't want it right now, unless you kick him out, that pipeline will not go through.
But keep in mind now, this whole thing with Assad has been something that the U.S. has been training rebels in Jordan and sending those people in to undermine a legitimately elected government.
Now, Leon Panetta, in his book, and he came out and said this, and so is Hillary Clinton in her book, and Robert Gates, the Republican, both the other 2 Democrats again, said that they asked the president to arm the Syrian rebels 2 years ago. And they're just getting armed, which are mostly Kurds over in Syria, the rebels, a lot of them are Kurds.
In a certain area.
Yeah, in the Syria.
But keep
all
in mind,
Kurds aren't Christians, but a lot of the Kurds are Christians.
But they are sending in people from Saudi Arabia, people from other areas.
Oh, you have to
Saudi
fight against
Arabia
them.
is actually sending in people to fight against Assad, and that's causing a lot of
And
instability.
that's because of the natural gas.
Well,
They want that
actually,
pipeline built through there.
it's not only about natural
No,
gas.
it's not only, but that's a big part.
there's
There's
a
a lot of
connection
money from
between
Saudi
Iran.
Arabia.
Yeah, you were
What's
just
the
about to
Iran
say.
is the connection because
Iran
they
is the
feel
connection.
as though they
You
want
say Tehran or Iran?
Iran.
Iran is the country that they want to in the future
that's
go
right.
to war with.
Well,
They're already on the
Iran
chopping
is
block.
Shia, and Saudi and every place else over there is mostly Sunni, because 85% of all Muslims are Sunni in that area, and about 15% other in Iran. That's why Baghdad has not fallen, because the Shiites are in Baghdad because of Iran. Iran really is running a lot of Shia.
Well,
Yeah,
Shias in Baghdad.
they've had considerable input in this new regime put in place. That
Right,
is
since
true.
Maliki's gone.
Well, and keep in mind, Maliki had not lived in that area for almost 30 years. He hadn't lived in Iraq before being placed over Iraq. He had not lived there for 20 or 30 years.
Yeah, he was.
So it may
He was
very
there
well
8 years, but there was never rest.
But let me just make this point. It may very well be that this government that was imposed on them from the outside through military force.
You're talking the Iraqi. You're talking about
right, the
Iraq.
Iraq. It may very well be that the people in that area, let's give them some credit, they may
I
be
agree. They don't
rejecting
want that, yeah.
the government that was imposed
And
on
I
them
agree
from
with
the
you,
outside.
Daryl, and I said that in the last show. We probably went in there wrong. Saddam Hussein may have been a bad guy, but he kept that region stable, and we should never have gone in. But we're dealing with the hand that we have caused to be dealt to us right now. So what do? You can't just desert it because they are coming here. They proved it yesterday in Canada, killing parliamentary people.
First of all, I'm just
They're
going to say.
saying it is probably ISIS.
Well, I'm going to
It
say
is
that.
not proven.
Right, but see, that's highly speculative. An incident that happens over there, Sandy Hook was even worse than that, but that had nothing to do with ISIS. So you can't automatically label something Islamic or ISIS or connected to that.
I'm not doing it. The press is doing it. I'm not saying anything. But they do have, they're 90% sure of what they're saying is linked to ISIS. What about Nadal Hassan, who killed most people killed in a military who is linked to ISIS? Our psychiatrist in Fort Hood, Texas, about 4 years ago, who killed all the military guys in Texas, psychiatrist, now that we're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to. Yeah, he was born in America, but he is a Muslim. He's from the Nation of Islam. And
no, he's not from the Nation of Islam. He's a Muslim, but he's not from the Nation of Islam.
Okay, he is a Muslim, and they say he has ties to ISIS. They were showing.
Well,
I read some of his information.
Well, let me correct on that. He's applying to become a part of
Islam.
ISIS.
Yes. He's a guy who's in prison now. He's a psychiatrist, but he's from America.
Right.
But he's a Muslim.
Well, let me just say this. The thing we have to do with all things is we have to make sure that we're fair in what, because the media that's 90% sure about this or that was the same media that was 100% sure about weapons of mass destruction.
That didn't come from the media. That came from the government, and the government was wrong. They were dealing with what the government told them.
And the
but
media
what can they say? They're not the ones who are investigating it. The government was wrong.
Well, that's why you have to verify your sources. You don't report something as fact.
But Daryl, if the president's speaker tells you that if Colin Powell, which he did, and the FBI director, Mueller, I think his name was at that time, sit at the United Nations and say, we'll guarantee you their weapons of mass destruction, then what else can the media report?
Well, they can report that they said it.
Yeah.
But they actually reported
beyond
that's what it was.
But I think most media does that. I mean, they take what they want and they print it the way they want to, not just in America. You know, I've been in other countries, and they say that they do it to slant it to whatever point of view you want to take it from.
Absolutely, I agree. Objectivity is a lot of times out of the window.
Right. It's to make the big bang, I guess, in the media to sell whatever you're selling. Yeah, sensationalism. You had something to say, Drew?
Well, a couple of different points. I've heard us talking about arming the Kurds, and I previously mentioned we have to be careful as a country and also responsible for this particular region, and even more than that, responsible to our allies within the region.
Which are who?
Well, for example,
tell me who our allies are.
For example, Turkey. You mentioned those.
Yeah, but Turkey won't let us land our planes right now there, because the article that I was reading said that Turkey really would like to take over Syria themselves.
That's correct.
They want Syria. So that's why they're kind of waiting in the lurch right now to see what happens with the Saudi money being pushed through there. And so they're going to take the side, which everybody does, the side that's best for you, right?
Well, again,
That's self-preservation, isn't it?
and understandably so. But we have to again
Well, tell me what you would do if you had the ability, and I'm going to ask everybody that, if you could fix, which nobody's been able to do, fix the Middle East problem, but the Middle East problem is coming to North America.
well,
Whether it was ISIS yesterday or not, you've got the guy at Von Foods who beheaded the people in Oklahoma who was and was trying to convert them to be a Muslim.
Mean, again, a lot of those reports that people get may be very speculative.
But maybe not. You can't.
But they're not
we're
facts.
going with even
Right.
what you read. You have to say everything's in the eye of the writer.
Well,
so whoever wrote it.
Right. But well, here's what we do know.
You're disagreeing that the guy in Oklahoma City a couple of months ago who beheaded the people at Von Foods who were saying, and multiple employees said, he tried to convert them to Islam.
Well, see, here's the thing. By me being a Muslim
Yes.
and knowing about Islam, I find that highly suspect. There's been a lot of stuff.
You still don't agree they're militant Muslims, just like the
I
guy
do.
who blew up Oklahoma City, 20 years ago, whatever, 15 years ago,
You're talking about
was
Timothy
a radical. Yeah, Timothy McVeigh,
Right.
who blew up Oklahoma City.
But see, here's the thing. I don't put his religion on it. If a person is crazy, they're crazy.
Well,
but
tell
I
me
don't
why
put a
more, and
religious
this is-
label on insanity,
Well,
and that's what the media has been doing unfairly.
More middle class or moderate Nation of Islam Muslims coming out against the people that are doing some things in the name of Islam, because it is not fair to the Nation of Islam or to the reputation of Muslims for them to be labeled this way. But I have not heard many moderate Muslims come out and say, if indeed we are doing this, if indeed there are some people who are radical, which they are in every religion, every nation,
Right.
everything, why aren't more people like you saying, if they're doing this, they should stop because it has nothing to do with what we're taught?
I will say this. We have a standard of conduct that is a righteous standard of conduct in Islam. But again, if we're
we have the Holy Bible as Christians, but people still kill and they don't follow the Ten Commandments.
that is true.
Yeah.
Now keep in mind, nobody asked moderate Christians to speak out against Timothy McVeigh when Timothy McVeigh did what he did.
That was one incident, though.
But again, you have to understand.
We're talking about years. We're talking about what's going on.
What about
we're
Ted
talking
Bundy?
about Baghdadi who said, I'm going to drown you in your own blood.
But
again,
in
I don't
the Ted
speak
Bundy
Arabic,
incident
so-
also in the same vein?
So I don't
Say
know
what,
if that
Anthony?
translation is accurate. I really don't.
You were saying what? So you don't think Baghdadi said we're going to drown you in your own blood?
Again, I would have to really investigate those things.
But as you said, you don't speak Arabic, so you
I
have
don't
to get
speak
an Arabic
Arabic. There you go.
interpreter there. So you won't agree that there are some militant Muslims.
There are militants in every
That's what I'm saying.
religion.
So just
The Christian
on
Knights
that
of the
question,
right.
do you agree there are militant Muslims?
There are yes, I would agree they're militant Muslims.
Yeah, I already said
Absolutely.
they're militant Christians. I'm a Christian. They're militant in everything.
Right. But
What were you
to overemphasize religious label and put a religious label on insanity is the problem that I have with what the media is doing.
Because ISIS, it says Islamic State.
Right, but keep in mind you're using ISIS. There's no ISIS in Arabic. That was something crafted by our media to get us to do.
It's about
Right.
geographic territory, Iraq and Syria. And then the Levant, ISIL. The first time I ever heard Levant was from the President of the United States. I'm like, what is he talking about? That's when I went and looked it up. What Levant is a geographical
It's
region.
a huge geographic
Yeah,
area.
and I just mentioned the 6 countries along the Mediterranean, and we showed it up here.
Well, irrespective of the map and everything that's there, it's a situation where these people in this region have been subjected to unwanted Western intervention into their affairs, which has absolutely caused the chaos. So
How do you know it's unwanted? And we're going to wrap this up in a minute with one question, everybody.
Again, the Iraqis nor the Syrians wanted Western intervention, and things have not gotten better for Iraq or Syria as a result of Western intervention. We've gotten nothing out of it.
What would
and
you
they've
do
lost
if
a
you
lot.
were America and you can make the decision? What would you just get out of there? What would you do?
What I would do is get out of there. And the reason that I would get out of there is because insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results. More militarization is going to lead to more hatred for America. And as Minister Farrakhan has taught us,
But don't you think
you've
Saudi
got to
Arabia
be
is
just.
pushing some of this because they want more territory and they want that pipeline?
They are being pushed by us. through our State Department to do what they're doing.
We're
They're
going to have to
being
take that
told
up
what
on
to do.
another one. On another one.
Absolutely.
But, okay, Drew, let's go to you, and then we're going to end it with Anthony.
The question is, what would I would do? Definitely sustain our allies within the particular region.
And who are they?
More particular, the areas in near Turkey, Israel, and those other.
Is Saudi Arabia really our friend? You think you lived in Qatar a while, didn't you? Or Kuwait? Which one?
Kuwait. They're an ally.
To their advantage. Whatever's their advantage, probably.
Whatever political and
because we're in bed with oil. We have to be. We're so tied
right.
to it.
But through sustained diplomacy is the key to this whole thing. Because again, we will. I believe that it was a necessary intervention.
Future Attorney Stewart, a little way to wrap this up for us. Anthony?
All right, very simple. This is what I would do. The rule is that we don't need to have blunderous occupations. We need to do balance of power interest. I would divide Iraq into 3 different categories and literally auction them off to pay off the rest of our national debt.
Yes. Iraq's geography.
That's right. Divided into 3: Tigris and Euphrates East, Iran; Tigris and Euphrates West,
but
Arabia.
But it's not ours to divide, is it?
Not anymore, but it would have been. That's what I would have done.
Would have done.
And then the northwestern region would have gone to the Kurds. They could have a sovereign region, build their own pipelines if they want to Turkey, since they have their own.
End up with another East and West Germany, which is.
It worked fine for Europe. Did we get another world war with it?
That's debatable.
So
because you got a Russian influence.
Okay, we're going to have to continue this. There will be a part 3. As you see, everybody gets very heated, and everybody's got different opinions on what to do in the Middle East. And we can't make any worse decisions than obviously our government's had over the last years. So thank you very much, and we'll be right back in black and white. That was a very heated but very informational show that we just did with the 3 very diverse ideas from 3 different people. So we're going to do, the audience has already asked me to do another part to that. In fact, it may be evolutionary because that's what's going on in the Middle East. It changes every day. But when I was a little girl, I still want to shine a light and tell everybody, if you just lit one little candle, what a bright world this would be. And remember, between every issue of black and white, be tolerant, because there are always shades of gray. And go out and realize and read up. So when you hear these shows, determine what your own facts or fiction are. And then I think you'll be a much better informed and not panicking person in the United States of America. Because as you saw, Daryl on our panel had very different views about what a militant Nation of Islam person is. And that is why we're here in black and white. Goodbye till then.